My guest today, Jonathan Ward from Icon 4x4. I can't even really describe what he does because it is so next level what he does to these automobiles that it's almost like, I don't know, you have to watch his videos, you have to somehow try to go see his place, you have to look at his Instagram, even to really take in what this guy does. What he does is he basically takes old 4x4s, Toyotas, Ford Broncos, and he turns them into masterpieces. I first heard about him years ago, and I've always been in love with the Ford Bronco, starting with the first generation ones, the late 60s, 70s Broncos. I particularly love the sport model. My buddy had one, and I never forgot it. It was amazing. Uncut fenders. I can't stand when people cut the fenders and just ruin the ride. But I've been a Bronco guy for years and years and years. I love the new Bronco. I love the old Broncos. And to see somebody who has vision, knowledge, and I'll tell you, Jonathan is an encyclopedia of knowledge of all things, cool. I thought I knew some shit. This guy was just spitting it out, man. I think you guys are going to love this episode. He's a former child actor. He was very successful at it. He was Charles in Charge. He was on Steel Magnolias. He worked on Broadway when he was young. He was in the game. He was working a full-time acting gig and decided, hey, this ain't for me. You know how many people get in the game and then say, this ain't for me? I would say maybe one or two. And Jonathan being one, and maybe some other guy we don't know about. But he was in the game and realized this ain't for me and reinvented himself, which is absolutely an incredible story in itself. To be successful at one thing and then start all over and be successful in another thing. Oh, he hit lightning in the bottle twice. But this particular gig, Icon 4x4, you could tell really makes him happy. And even if he wasn't successful, he would still be doing this. And that's what I love about him. And that's always what I always try to preach on this show. Not preach, that sounds corny, but I always try to tell people, man, make sure you're doing what you love to do. Only here once. You hear it a million times, and it doesn't seem to stick in a lot of people's minds. But you really are only here once. And for him to tell me about his life journey, it was just amazing, because that's exactly how I related to him. I was like, wow, this guy started over. He took a chance and did it. He said something kind of amazing that really hit me. He said, respect your perspective. And that is a great, great motto. To hear that, it was really cool to hear that. He also loves leather jackets. Not only does he build amazing automobiles, but he's constantly trying to create other stuff. So leather jackets, wallets, boots. He's got all kinds of things going on. But most of all, what really blows me away beyond anything is I always thought if you're going to do something, try to be the absolute best. I always try to do that. You might not make it or hit the mark, but at least try. Don't cut corners. Don't go for the fast way. Just do it right. And that's what this man does. which is pretty amazing. Introduce yourself, my man.
I am a lunatic, self-professed serial craftsman. My name is Jonathan Ward, and I am non-repentant.
Dude, it's so funny when I come over to interview somebody, I have a picture in my mind of what it's going to be. And I got here, and we're here at Icon 4x4. I can't even believe what I just saw out there.
I'm so happy, man, that you're local and you were able, despite COVID, to come here. Because I think it's hard to envision the lunacy that is Icon, not to mention me. So it's so helpful for you to come, and from all the crap in my office through to the range of projects and engineering and stuff we got going on. Thank you for coming out.
This is it's like a full-on automobile factory.
Yeah, like since the crazy idea of the brand, like I always wondered why it seemed that this industry is stuck in a rut where you had the big high volume soulless boys, then you had the mom and pop hot rod, street rod, pro touring, pro street, whatever. Like there's all these like little comfortable funnels everyone's supposed to fit in. But I always thought it'd be interesting to like take a lot of the technologies and the manufacturing capabilities and computer aided design and 3D printing and like find efficiencies, elevate the end product, and make the business more scalable and possible. Not to say it's a smart business, because it's not. It's a complete shit show, but I love it. And so like you saw, even just in hand tools, we're going from late 1800s all the way through to like bleeding edge aerospace and like finding a MacGyver mashup of combining all those different solutions to make what we do possible.
I just couldn't even believe it. I thought I was going to pull up to like a 3-stall, warehouse in the valley.
Well, you would have like 20 years ago. That's about where we were at. We were in Van Nuys. I opened with 1,200 square feet, a wing and a prayer, and 3 credit cards, and then just never jumped off the treadmill and kept going and growing and reinvesting.
20 years ago?
Well, I guess almost 30 now.
Whoa!
If you combine both brands, yeah.
Yeah, what's the other brand again?
So TLC, so Toyota Land Cruisers.
And that's how you started.
Yeah. So, going way back, right? Totally different career path. I was an actor. I often would have like 2 weeks on, 1 week off, hiatus when doing like sitcom stuff.
What era? What years?
Oh, man, I started on Broadway at the age of 7 in 77, and then I bailed from the industry when I was 20. I had a stalker that got really fucked up. And all the way up to about 1990.
Wow. What you were you just doing guest stuff on shows, like
all sorts of stuff?
Happy Days, that kind of shit?
No, but I worked with Scotty. I was on Charles in Charge. I played Douglas. So for the original Charles in Charge, and then did a bunch of series and guest and movies of the week and features and animation and just like you name it. Like had a really fun, diverse and long career. But when I got to that point where I supposedly had more, in quotes, creative control, I realized more and more that I didn't have shit for control.
Yeah.
So if my creative vision was a certain way, even at the point where I was sitting in on dailies and had casting approval and script involvement, etc., like it just, the projects I loved the most, the public wouldn't embrace and they wouldn't make it past a pilot. The ones I was embarrassed to have been a part of are like still on reruns.
Yeah.
And then that combined with a stalker that I had to carry concealed. I couldn't live in my own house. And I was like Teeny Bopper magazine famous, like far from famous, but like, maybe wouldn't go to the mall on a weekend.
Right.
And if the end goal is to be famous,
yeah.
And I was already dealing with some pretty gnarly space violating situations and friends who were famous, looking at how dysfunctional their lives were.
Yeah.
It's like, I think I'm out of here. So my wife was in music management.
She manages bands?
Yeah, she also was not happy with it because she was realizing she was an overpaid babysitter. And I've always been a huge traveler. I've been to, I don't know, probably 50 countries at this point. So we were on a like 2-month trip in South Africa, and over no advanced discussion or analysis over a drunken dinner in the middle of nowhere in South Africa, we're like, well, fuck it. We get home, let's reinvent ourselves. Like, let's do something we love that we are more in control of. And we came home and quit our jobs and started it up.
Wow. So while you're doing this acting, are you a lot like me where you always had these fascinations of cars and Americana clothing?
Hell
and,
yes.
Yeah.
And craftsmanship. And like, I've studied Pre-Raphaelite painting and deconstructive, constructive sculpting. I did very high-end traditional arts and crafts, fumed quarter-sawn white oak woodwork, and geeked out on that for 8 years. And so I've always been a serial craftsman and a deep, deep fan of vintage. And the consideration, the like Raymond Loewy's book, Never Leave Good Enough Alone, puts it so well. Like back when people really gave a shit, and like if they're going to make something, they made it to the highest form they could, all factors considered. But to me, like post-industrial revolution, there was a mass perversion of quantity over quality. And then comes Wall Street, which really screwed things, or the priorities I value, up. Where, shit, that's good enough, and we can sell more of them if we cut that corner, party on. We'll do a nice marketing message, and no one will know any better and good enough. So, no, I've always been, everything vintage just speaks to me. Yeah. And, I'd be on location in the middle of nowhere in Louisiana, in Natchitoches, doing Steel Magnolias, and I was basically an overpaid extra.
Yeah.
So I was on will call most days and had per diem burning a hole in my pocket. I was making too much money. So one of the local Teamsters, his daddy wanted to go get a new bash boat, and he had an old hot rod that he wanted to get running, but go and sell it because he's going to get the bash boat.
Yeah.
So it was a 34 5-window Ford Coupe, and I'm like, hell yeah. So literally while I'm supposed to be on the film, I was like carrying my Motorola 10 brick phone on Will Notify.
Yeah.
And the AD was a friend. I'm like, dude, like call me if you need me. But that closed down gas station in town on the main drag past the Dairy Queen? That's where I'll be. Yeah. And I found like the dude that had closed his body shop and a local mechanic. And I built that hot rod.
Wow!
While I was on location, and then drove it home when I was done.
Whoa! On the set of Steel Magnolia is hilarious.
It helps keep me sane. I mean, I've always been drawn to, like, I'll stay up at night, kind of OCD obsessing on a idea or concept to the point that I literally, like, my version of sheep jumping a fence to go to sleep is like literally building a CAD model in my head and going inside it and tweaking it and scaling it and changing it. And either I'll get to a point where I'll just throw it away and realize it sucks and it's stillborn, or it'll get to the point that I'm like, okay, I have to realize this or I'm going to lose my remaining sanity. And frankly, like all my brands have been born out of that simple, guttural, visceral feeling. Or like that combined with questioning why are people still doing something the same way? Like, why not integrate? Why not combine? Why not mash up? Like, transportation design, especially these days, like it's a whorehouse. Like all the manufacturers are all based on price point and good enoughness versus like you get into aerospace and marine and rail cars and military. There's so much cool shit out there that like I just am drawn to that are better, going to last longer, or higher quality. And just because it's from another industry, like I didn't go to art center. I don't have a degree, so I don't know any better.
Yeah.
Which I used to be like self-conscious about. Now I'm stoked because I didn't know better. I have no blinders on. So like I'm grabbing shit from elevators, from patio furniture, from woodworking, from leathercraft, whatever. And like transportation is like this amazing extroverted combination of so many different art forms and mediums compounded by engineering elements and constraints. Like it's the perfect storm to communicate all the shit I love. And that's what, frankly, I mean, that's what got me into this. That and not wanting to work for the man.
Yeah, work for the man.
Never had a real job. Well, I guess, yeah.
Yeah.
Acting was as close as I ever got to that.
Yeah, yeah. So you start with some credit cards and a shopping van. So when you quit everything, you and your wife, you come home, you say, wait, I love Toyota Land Cruisers. I want to start building them to another level. How does this happen?
Well, it goes back to when I moved to California to do Charles in Charge, coming from New York City, and prior to that, coming from a small town in Maryland on a farm. So coming to SoCal, especially in the 80s, it was popping, right?
Oh, yeah.
And someone on set casually informed me that you can get a driver's license at 15 and a half. And I was like, oh, shit, I ain't never leaving this place. Like, sign me up.
Yeah.
So I was always a car geek. My dad was always a car geek. My granddad had a pre-war gas station service center used car garage in the Chesapeake in Virginia. So it was already in my blood. So I was restoring cars before I had a license. And then after high school, never went to college, but took tons of training and extension classes or whatever. And it was actually a USC business class. I got into a debate with another student and the professor. And my theory was you could turn supply and demand on its head in modern day, and this is pre-internet. Now it's really, I firmly believe in it, in that if you can control the supply, you can create the demand.
Oh, yeah.
And they're like, you're an idiot. So it turned into I think it was $1,000 bet.
Yeah.
I was given I think it was 90 days or a couple quarters to drive the market value of something up 30 points to win the bet.
Wow.
And at that time, I was already, as a car geek and interested in business, like a lot of the automotive craftsmen, like my machinist or my body shop, I love these guys, and I still find this especially with body shops. Unfortunately, you're either an artist or you're a businessman 99.9% of the time.
Well, I always say that. You got the artist who's the horrible businessman, and they go out with all the great stuff over the times of the last 30 years that I love. These people that come and go, like an Exile Cycles.
Yeah,
Russell.
Ian. Yeah, Russell.
Yeah,
Russell, yeah.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, this shit was over the top. And there's many, many, many people I've
throughout
met.
history. I mean, even
absolutely.
all the way back to Ettore Bagatti, you could say that company tanked because of his vision and his lunacy. So
Yep.
I ain't certainly saying I'd be any better. I just learned early on, actually, I can't say I learned it from, but like Napoleon Hill, great old business writer, coming out of the Depression, some great stories there. His belief in master alliance, like creating a team of different perspectives that collectively help you avoid the own worst enemy aspects of your own weaknesses. So like I have a COO who's a rock star, who's a spreadsheet king, who helps create structure and scale here. And then engineers, and my wife's my CFO. I would have fucked this up sideways a long time ago.
Yeah.
But so basically I'd always loved Land Cruisers. So coming out of that bet, I was like, all right, I got this. All right, guys, fine. You think I'm wrong? And like it got under my skin, and had a little bit of money and a lot of time because it was hiatus season. And I just road tripped around the Western US, go get the thrifty nickel and the recycler. This is all the old days.
Yeah.
And started waking people up early in the morning and, hey, you still have it. And I would originally, my idea was from my travels where in locales where what you drove is a matter of if you were alive the next morning or not. I gained a significant respect through those drivers of the original FJ40. But in the US at that point, it was like that Asian Jeep thing. Like no one really, there was no subcult of note for them.
Yeah.
So like a restored one would have like a cast iron 302 from the wrecked El Camino, chrome Pep Boys wheels and a Mako paint job.
Yeah.
So my simple premise going in was, I think There are people who really have the perspective I did, who would really dig these, but they're not seeing the right one. So I would just buy the tastiest little virgins I could find, forensically detail them, fix what wasn't working, and reintroduce them into the market, photographed and presented properly. And I was blown away at the response.
Wow.
So this is pre-South Africa trip. I went back to collect on the bet.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, dude, we were joking. I was like, are you kidding me? So they wouldn't pay me. But I started flipping them and was doing great. And then we split and went on that trip and then had that dumb idea and came home. I had probably 8 Land Cruisers and maybe 20 grand and a couple credit cards. And a friend of mine had an industrial space. He wanted to move his shop to Santa Monica, and it already had like all the key permits I needed. So I just took over his lease and like put a Post-it note on the door, like, you're interested, call me, and carried around that old Motorola brick and waited for the phone to ring.
Wow.
And I was stoked because like immediately people got it. I wasn't alone. And that really gave me a lot of faith, and sort of my mantra remains respect your perspective. And I tell that to anyone and everyone, because especially like design schools, the whole process to me is more like an MBA program where they're like try and brainwash you and get rid of, as especially in the design world, right? Like the way you see the world, Dean, is unique to you. And that's what makes it beautiful. Well, if you go into a structured architectural or design training program, they want to brainwash that out of you so you'll be a compliant little robot in some cubicle somewhere. I'm like, screw that. I mean, my son's a senior. My oldest son, Nash, is a senior at Otis. And like, I noticed them doing that. And their culture is more disruptive and supportive than most because of not really the culture so much as the individual spirit of some of the very specific teachers that he's become friends with. So it's been beautiful to see him in that environment still maintain his own vision and way of seeing the world. Because I don't care what you're going to do. If you don't bring that to it, you ain't going to have any passion for it. So you're probably going to be a soulless prick and be burned out and not into it. And the world's going to end up like most production cars, where you take the badges off and you can't tell them apart because they're all focus group, knee-jerk, good enough silo projects. And the world's got enough of that crap.
It's funny to think about your thought on, put stuff in high demand. That's exactly the formula that Rolex did like 2 years ago, where they just made the old thought of, we just can't make enough of these anymore. That thing, And all of a sudden, I mean, at one point there was 1 million Submariners in every Bend Bridge mall in America. And I think they realized, we can't sell these. There's just so many of them. In the used market, they were like $4,000 and all that. And all of a sudden they just disappear them. And then it creates this storm now where.
But I'd argue that was more shareholder. Well, I mean, don't forget, it's Rolex.org, which don't get me started because that's a whole crock. They're nonprofit, pay no tax. So to me, that was more clever. Right. Sort of LVMH market manipulation
that's exactly,
approach to create rarity.
That's what I'm talking about.
Whereas mine wasn't about manipulating the market so much as repositioning a product or service.
Proper representation.
Yeah, represent it properly or elevate how it's crafted in a very honest and transparent way.
Right.
But I mean, like Rolex, there's multiple block long unmarked buildings in a certain province in China where something's being made that then gets a Swiss made label on it. So
you think so? Wow.
There's a lot of smoke and mirrors in the Swiss watch world. And I'm a huge watch collector goober.
Yeah.
So I've dived into that. I mean, I designed and have my own watch made in Switzerland, and it was a dysfunctional, time hemorrhaging shit show. And at the end of the day, honestly, I think I could have gone to Asia and made a better product more cost effectively and brought it to market quicker. Whoa. But the market still perceives Swiss made in a certain light. But Swiss made, just like made in Italy, is total bullshit. Like America's standard for made in the USA is incredibly rigid, like very, very precise and very difficult to say. made in Italy. The whole bag can be made in Taiwan, brought into Italy, and they attach the zipper pull on and go, allora, made in Italy. Why? Because their industry is so strong, they controlled and wrote the regulation that's standardized what it can be. Whereas in the US, unfortunately, true industry, I'm not talking service industry, insurance companies, bond traders and all that, but actual manufacturing has been sequestered, cock-blocked, offshored, underappreciated, overregulated, disrespected by state and federal entities to the point that they really had no voice to promote and support what they're doing, which sucks. And that's like another big driver for me is with the Icon brand specifically of like, and I guess in my own head, like the history of industrial design and innovation in this country is what put this country on the map and made us worth, although we maybe open our mouth more than we should on a global sense, especially trying to be the world's police. But it's like it's what made us worth listening to, right? We were free thinkers, we were innovators, we were coming up with cool shit. Where's that gone? Like, so I love like pushing back and revisiting traditional arts or reinterpreting them in some cases to make them possible and relevant in the modern world. And I love that, like when I started, I was one of the few idiots I knew doing it. And like most of the adjacent shops in my original industrial space, like they had a pool on the wall betting which week I was going to go out of business because no one was dumb enough to do it.
Yeah.
And now, right, like it's a revolution. And I think it's like one of the few things that excite me in modern culture of like from the consumer backwards also to the thinker, there seems to be a revival or a renaissance where people are tired of the marketing veneer of modern luxury and it's all bullshit. It's people are looking for more honesty, more authenticity, more personality in whatever it is they're going to consume.
Yeah.
I'm not going to the big box store and buying another piece of shit backpack that in 3 months I'm going to have to replace just because it's $40. Like, what if I pay $400 and I buy one that's going to outlast 40 of those?
I believe that a small amount of people want that because I can't tell you how many assholes email me over and over, $300 for denim, $1,000 for boots. Fuck you, you fucking asshole. I get my stuff and it's great right down at the Walmart. And man, these people are like angry, like absolute assholes. Instead of going, hey, good for you, you're into that or whatever. And then there's a group of people that hit me and go, I never thought of spending that type of money. But after hearing your show and knowing what goes into the process, I understand the price tag now. And it seems a little undervalued to me.
Yeah. And it's still the majority, but it's growing.
Yeah.
And don't get me wrong. Again, like, especially when I first started Icon, I got a lot of hate, and like the trolls online would just chew our ass, like $90,000 for an old Japanese Jeep Reebok with a shit. Like I can build that for $10,000 in my backyard. We still get some of that, but my attitude is good for you. Then, like, if I motivated you to prove me wrong, but you're actually going to go out and make something, party on. Good for you.
Yeah.
Thankfully, over the years, first off, one of the lessons I finally learned is shut up and don't be a keyboard warrior because you're never going to win with those trolls.
And just ignore it. If you ignore it, they go somewhere else. It's great.
And the proof in the pudding was that the customers that actually came to support the brand got it not only to the extent I was offering it, they've continued to push me to innovate and elevate ever since.
Yeah.
So, yeah, our price point's gone much higher, but so is the product.
Yeah.
And it's not for everyone. And frankly, for me, like on an emotional level, that's the whole point. And I don't want everyone to get it. I don't want everyone to have it. I want it to mean something. I want it to be special. If in 20 or 30 years, if someone sees an icon and it still represents something and it means something, mission accomplished.
Yeah.
And the second it's trying to be for everyone, it doesn't make any sense because I'd have to do so many changes to everything down to the pure ethic that it would no longer be the same religion. So like Henry Ford, who wasn't the most eloquent of men, but one of his quotes that I love, and it's a true quote, Edsel authenticated, because there's a lot of bullshit quotes by Henry, but there's an ass for every seat.
Yeah.
You know, like, fine, you don't have to get it.
Yeah.
And I think the more that hater who's bitching you out about $300 denim, I think if he had the bandwidth to understand that supported someone like Cone Denim before they went out of business, if that supports the Nick Horweens of the world, if that supports the domestic hemp thread manufacturers, if that
even
allows,
the stores like Self Edge that are selling the stuff, you know, that see
like
the
if
vision.
it's supporting your community.
Yeah.
It's not supporting a publicly traded company that doesn't even pay taxes in the U.S. because their holding company is in whatever country, and they're just
you're
Wall
so
Street
right there.
gaming. Like,
Supporting
what do you
the
want to really
community.
support?
Yeah.
And you can buy your $30 jeans, and good for you, but they're not going to literally the $300 pair, if it's not marketing veneer bullshit $300 pair, it'll outlast by a factor of 10 or more. So
100%.
put
I
your
said,
money where
you
it
buy your
matters.
10 pairs of boots over your next 10, 15 years, and I'll buy my one pair of boots till I die.
We met through Brian
the bootmaker. Yeah.
It's a perfect example of craft over quantity.
That's what I love about this show, is really letting people know, hey, man, this is way beyond what you're thinking. If you're thinking that this person is making these boots...
Right, like people sometimes think I'm like living in some palace with a helipad on some island, you know, just fucking off and drinking all day, which don't mind me. And I'm like, that sounds great. Like, sign me up. But no, I'm just a working stiff with massive overhead. Supporting 60 families and a shit ton of inappropriate California regulations and double and triple taxations. And like, no, it's a job.
Yeah.
But I go home, I sleep well. I'm proud of what I do. I'm proud of what I create. I'm fortunate enough to have ambassador clients, a tribe of people, even the people who can't pay what I, can't afford what I do, but who get it and support it. I'm stoked. I didn't have to sell my soul to go sit in a cubicle and be pissed at you and your $300 fucking jeans, man.
yeah. I mean, you really remind me of, I used to ride West Coast choppers and had quite a few of them. And I wasn't rich. I would just flip stuff and got myself into a situation where...
You know Shane Russick? Similar sit. She's a dear friend of mine. He used to flip those. I think Jesse was a little more hardcore than I am, but there's a very similar, I think, self-acknowledgement where he said, you know what? I'm good at this. I suck at that. I'm happy here. I'm a prick over there. So I'm just going to stay in my happy space. I think he went through a much longer and more tumultuous opera to come to that clarity, because I had a professional career since I was 7 full time. I think I am fortunate in that I gained that understanding at a really young age.
Well, my point is, when you look at his bikes, and I remember back then people would be like 65,000, 90,000 for a chopper. You're out of your fucking mind. I go, the guy's losing money on the choppers. You think he's making any money on the chopper? It's those 5-cent T-shirts that you're buying for $65.
Yeah, there was a time Jesse was making like $250,000 a month.
Walmart deal and stuff with the shirts. The shirts that you're buying from him, he made more money than any chopper that you're shitting on right now. The man-made hours of building this stuff is beyond. And that's why, as we were walking around your shop today, I was like, oh, well, these are definitely not 90 grand anymore. You could just tell what's going into it.
Well, the irony is, too, like the most expensive products we do are the one-offs, the derelicts and the reformers.
Yeah.
They're like 5% profit margin, and they take 2 to 3 years to build. So they're stupid. So I purposely, well, not me personally, but smarter people on my team have said, look, fine, you want to play in this sandbox, and I understand engineering, design, material resource, and research, and like they're expansive, they're creative, and they've become very important for the brand to show the depth and breadth of our capability, but they're dumb business. So you want to keep doing that, great, but we're not going to do more than 4 a year, and we're not going to grow that brand, that team.
Yeah.
Keep it special, one and done, It's in its little happy space, and it's justified by the relative scale or repeatability of the other stuff we do.
Let's break down what you do. Now, I first discovered you, I think 10 years ago. I'm obsessed with late 60s Broncos, specifically the Sport. I love the Sport model, uncut fenders. I love stock Sport, the hubcaps.
LUBR forever, baby.
Fucking
I
love
hated that people cut them. I just don't. never
Oh,
understood
God,
that.
it makes my skin
Ruins the
crawl.
line.
So you have a derelict line.
Okay, so for people that are thus far like, who is this moron? So I have a company called Icon.
Yep.
Icon is all about revisiting the past in a modern context. 99% of that focuses on transportation. 1% thus far is watches and other geek outs. And then my side hustle hobby is turning into a new brand potentially in its own right. But let's focus on trans because it's confusing enough. We do our version inspired by the original Toyota Land Cruiser FJ40. So currently we offer that in 4 body styles in 2 different design thematic packages, gas or diesel, umpteen options. And like they're rebodied in aluminum, they're Teflon, polyester, powder coated, they're rocking coilover Fox Racing suspension and Brembo brakes and modern fuel injected V8 power and stuff like that. So the aesthetic is true to the original era, but the drivability, safety, reliability, and many of the perversions of modern production cars are all acknowledged. So it's the history remixed. Then we also have 2 other production lines, including the Bronco, based on the Gen 1 66 to 77 Ford Broncos, which again, we do a new school, we do an old school, we do a half cab, a full cab, a soft top, a roadster. Then we do the 47 to 53 Chevy 3100 5-window pickup trucks, new school or old school, which are basically sports cars with vintage Chevy truck bodies, so 4-wheel independent Brembos, full emissions certified, mid 400s horse, fuel injected V8, 6-speed manuals or autos, rack and pinion, blah, blah, blah. So that's the primary business. And then the one-offs are the derelicts or the reformers, which are 2 general classifications where pretty much we like to do 0 repeats. So totally inefficient. Take your favorite classic, thus far generally from the 30s to the early 70s. I hate plastics, so generally we stop in the 60s. And we reinterpret it. So redesign the chassis and the creature comforts and the ergonomics and the safety and the powertrain and the perversions and options and stuff. And either do it, if it's a derelict, we leave the wabi-sabi, funky, barn fine patina, and no, we don't bullshit fake patina that jumps the shark. So literally find the one with the right nature made her
No rust,
patina.
but patina.
Yeah, I mean, if I have to spot blend and TIG out and lead in a panel, I will if I must, but we try not to.
I
And
love
then
that.
hide all the engineering mechanically and integrate everything down to the AC and the safety column, but in ways that are non-disruptive to the original design language. Or if it's a reformer, those are done concourse new, looking dead stock, again, hiding all the same engineering. Or we'll reinterpret the design within the design languages of the era. But like if it's like a, let's say 1970 Superbird, transportation, Detroit, kind of a whorehouse in 70, but nifty, iconic car.
Amazing.
But then we'll play a little revisionist history and go, well, architecture, other segments of industrial design were on their game in the 70s. So who's my favorite? Mies van der Rohe, rocking it. Okay, so let me try and put myself in Van der Rohe's shoes and come up with a conceptual revisionist history of, okay, what if Van der Rohe had been on the team? What would he have done with that armrest, that handle, that knob, that switch, that typeface, the lighting, the wheel, to kind of keep it appropriate of the era, but change its perspective to kind of elevate it?
Insane, dude.
Totally. It's
I mean,
asinine. Even.
you have to think about back to Van Nuys to where we are now. What town is this? Winnetka?
Chatsworth.
Or Chatsworth. And think about how big this place is. and how far you've come. It is mind-boggling to me to think about the perfect example was recently I watched that Ford truck you did, and your videos. You're going through the truck, and I'm watching for like 20 minutes, and it keeps unraveling like an onion, and I'm like,
blah,
what?
blah, blah.
What no, but I'm just like, and then you're like, well, then we ran into this problem, and what I did was I made this, and then we ran it, and I'm just like, how does this fucking guy make this shit? Who does he find on his team that is geniuses too? And I mean, all of this just seems like a no money maker to me, you know?
And you're right. I mean, that isn't. I mean, at least with the production Broncos, FJs, and Thrift Masters, they're still painfully expensive for the consumer. But they're, I invested 7 digits in the beginning, but now I am, they're somewhat efficient-ish,
right?
In that they're still handcrafted every single time and take thousands of hours, but they're relatively repeatable. But even those, like in a luxury goods segment, like the base math is a 7x multiple. No, I'm doing a mom and pop brick and mortar basic business math of hoping for 35 points gross.
Wow.
So it's still, it barely makes sense, but it makes sense, and I love it.
You have to run into the clientele that a lot like Jesse did. I know because I was around that era a lot of like, where the fuck is my truck? You got to be getting that all the time. You said it was going to be 2 years.
Well, we're good on that.
Yeah, good.
Again, no credit to me, but to structure and systems and policies, and like we've invested a lot in the process. So if I give you a timeline, if it's production, we're good on that. And then we learned a little trick where we put in placeholders. So if I get that extra impatient dude who wants to like slide us cash to cut the line, I think that'd be a total asshole move. But my wife came up with a really smart version of that, which is, okay, we'll do that. If you donate a minimum of 20 grand directly to my children's charity, we'll quietly cut the line and let you up. And it's kick ass, dude. We've raised so much money over the years for Go Campaign.
20 grand bump to the front. Yeah. That's pretty cheap.
Yeah. And not even the front, but the kind of the front. And then it's a requested minimum donation.
Yeah.
And I don't even touch the money. It goes straight to my nonprofit. And some people like understand what we're trying to do with that effort, independent of Icon, to the extent that like they've given significantly more or actually become sponsors of specific programs or local heroes we have, and it rocks. And then the long-term projects are so far out that it trims the herd. So the instant gratification guy, he's just not my client. It's just not, we're not going to do well together. Like, and I'm straight up on that.
Yeah.
Because it is what it is, and it's time and materials, and it's a small team, and we've got 10 cars to get done before your project, which I love. And it sucks, though, man. I mean, I lose so much business from people that don't want to wait.
Yeah.
I mean, even today, if we had the access to talent and space to double our production output today, I could double my business P&L overnight. Because the second we have even a secondhand unit back, usually they don't even make it to the website. They sell within a couple hours of a crappy picture on Instagram.
Yeah, you just told me that.
Yeah, so which is killer, right? Like our value retention, our resale is unheard of in the specialty car world, where generally you're gonna lose your ass.
Oh yeah.
So I dig that, but at the same time, I have an artist on one shoulder and I got a capitalist on the other, which I don't pay as much attention to as perhaps I should.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we could really be knocking it out, but every time we try and get ahead of it, and take on more overhead and train more people. Even our training regiment takes about 6 months before we'll actually certify someone on a build team to know they have the unique range of skills needed to do what we do. The demand outstrips what I thought I was going to allow to build on spec. So total first world problems, and who knows what the socioeconomic future of our culture is at large.
Yeah.
And where that leaves me, In the meantime, we're excited, man. People keep buying shit they don't need. Bless them.
Oh, man.
Crazy, man. Even like during COVID,
Yeah.
the uptick in our business is staggering.
Yeah, that's I find that too. I've been selling stuff on eBay, and I think people are just home and their lives aren't getting in the way now, so they're just like, oh, look at this, and they get in these rabbit holes and just
Totally.
start buying
More
shit.
eyes on devices.
Absolutely.
Also, I think some of the big money, they've lost and gained so much money in markets that a lot of them are like, fuck it, I want something visceral, something I can go experience, create stories, engage with my family, and like have life experiences in, because none of us are getting out of here alive.
No.
And you can't take it with you. And they want something that generates smiles. And I also think there's a weird sub segment that instead of buying the bling bling, yo, look at me, Lambo or Rolls or something, they don't want to be that guy today. So we offer something that is more human. It's at one with where you're going to be, is more apt to incite smiles and thumbs up than preconceived judgments of fuck you rich bastard.
Yeah.
You know,
I never really understood that thing of like, build somebody up. We love them, I love them. And then the guy buys a Ferrari and puts it on Instagram, and they're like, fuck this guy, we hate him. And it's like, wow, man, over an item. But I get it. You could drive an Icon Bronco, and people, you're right, they'll be like, yeah. And they don't even know that's an Icon.
Yeah, like we had Tom Hanks who would laugh and say, like, I'll be at a gas station, some dude will walk up to me and start talking a story about his FJ40 and every rock he's ever climbed over and every adventure he went on and every Jeep he pulled out of a gutter or rut or whatever for like 10, 15 minutes before the guy's like, oh, wait, are you Tom Hanks?
Yeah.
And like it takes 20 minutes of like sharing story before they even, and there's something powerful, I think, in that, especially the derelicts. Talk about under the radar.
Oh, totally.
Like no one has any
oh my God,
clue.
like that Hudson out there you showed me.
I mean, like I've had like whatever, like a modern RS Audi or something, you know, pull up in the gutter ball lane next to my 52 DeSoto wagon, just kind of look over like dirt, and go to steal my lane, and I put his ass into the fucking fire hydrant and keep my lane.
With the sleeper.
Next light, he's like, "What the hell is that?"
Yeah.
And it's fun, and like the derelicts, man. Like I'm doing a lot of work downtown LA right now, and I'll generally always drive a derelict. I'll leave the windows down, leave it unlocked. All I've ever done in 10 years of driving my wagon is clean the windows and vacuum it, and nobody fucks with it.
Yeah.
Nobody fucks with it.
Yeah.
And no one sees it, or if they do, it's like kind, visceral connectivity.
Yeah.
It's never something, there's nothing about them that create isolation unless you're the asshole trying to steal my lane in the gutter ball.
As you're over in Van Nuys, how long does it take to where you start to envision really these next level machines? Are you just basically at first just kind of flipping and restoring and cleaning them up, and then you start to get an idea, let's do some motor swaps and stuff like that?
Yeah, the simplest answer is in the beginning, I was like the soup Nazi of vintage Land Cruisers, where dead stock or piss off. You want a V8? Get out of here. And I also originally was a little smarter in that I wasn't doing major restos. I was buying the best original ones, dialing them in, maximizing their presentation and selling them. But then slowly over time, those people had nowhere to get them service that they trusted. So then we're like, oh, I guess we need a service department. So then we grew and staffed that. Then we started to realize Toyota's EPC or whatever they're stocking in the US had no regard nor respect to their own brand heritage. So they're discontinuing parts, or I'd have to import or use crappy aftermarket unless we started stockpiling the old stock. So then, oh shit, I guess we need a parts department. So start chipmunking away and storing the parts. Then as they get older, obviously the conditions are worse and worse. Then the artisanal side of my brain started geeking out on restoring them. Then we started doing them for Toyota collectors or the owners of dealerships. And next thing you know, for Toyota corporate or Toyota distribution or Toyota museums. Then Toyota, Mr. Toyota, it was like God visiting the church, came to visit the shop, which I didn't even know there was a Mr. Toyota at the time. And we thought it was a joke. We thought someone was just screwing with us.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, sure. And then he shows up and we're like, hi.
How old was he?
In his 30s at
Whoa.
the time. Yeah, at that point, they were
Cool.
grooming him. He's the current, he's running Toyota today. But back then, he wasn't even officially working for Toyota, but they're very quietly grooming him and running him through different entities of Toyota to gain the expertise. And he's proven to be a phenomenal leader. But anyway, he wasn't even forthcoming while he was there, but it was clear from his face, Americans are crazy.
Yeah.
They do what? They're restoring old Toyotas. Like Japanese culture, like seems to have a far greater affinity with Americana vintage than their own. And I think Japan, and I love the country. I got to spend a couple months there last year
great.
pre-COVID, and the arts culture. And I love how they'll even take like tooling and vintage American craft and art forms and elevate them beyond where we ever even did. But that cultural concern with referencing the past due to different issues of their history, combined with the corporate, never in Japanese culture do you reference the past. So like slogans like moving forward, they ain't kidding. So it made absolutely no sense to them, but they were considering bringing back something based on the old FJ, and they wanted to kind of get their head around it.
Oh, is that the new FJ Cruiser? Wow.
That visit led to a formal meeting of, would you be interested in building a prototype pre-production design study vehicle that is a little history, a little past for us, because we have this thing called the FJ Cruiser we're thinking about making.
So that's how you get into...
That's when I got the glimpse behind the curtain at Oz to a deeper understanding, and having visited many of their factories globally and domestically, to understand more their process and see some kick-ass technology and efficiencies, and some, from my little odd perspective, some what are you fucking thinking stupid approaches.
Yeah.
To then, that prototype turned into a series of 3. Then they got voted on. Then they picked their favorite. Then they sent it to Calty, where all the students that came out of the systems where you comply and fit in a silo took sort of a RoboCop Xbox Gen X approach to it. Very little of my original vision made it to production, which left me yearning to realize that vision that was keeping me up at night, which was that concept executed purely my way. I went back to Toyota. I said, I got this stupid idea. I want to call the brand Icon. I want to start it by revisiting the FJ40 my way. And it's never going to be, and never will it be, about, oh, look how Toyota, Ford, BMW, Nissan, I don't care. It's not, oh, they sucked and we're great. It was, this was brilliant in that time. And it's a part of our social fabric today. I want to elevate and revisit and make it relate to modern use and tastes and expectations, right? And I got sort of the non-written but polite Japanese bow of, we won't kick your ass in court, party on.
Whoa, nice.
And then that was the beginning of it. That was
unbelievable.
it. And then I got lucky. Just like the internet, I give great credit to me being where I am today.
Yeah.
You know, TLC, when we started, I mean, we were advertising in the Truck Trader and Hemmings, and there was no internet. And like the 8th FJ40 I sell, some dude's like, have you heard of the internet?
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I've heard of that internet. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah.
He's like, have you heard of websites? I'm like, yeah, that's a neat idea. He says, all right, well, I'll trade you this truck. I'll design you a website.
Oh.
And I got a smoking deal in the truck and hadn't put much money into it.
Yeah.
And like, I was already in debt like crazy. And I was like, yeah, I'll go for that. And suddenly, right, I had the
Something we can do on Squarespace now.
Totally. Oh yeah, like it sucked, but it got the job done. I ran with that bitch for
So
decades.
he builds a website, and then it's just
man.
overnight.
Overnight,
Wow.
I could reach a tremendously larger audience without having to do like free break checks and work on anything anyone brought by my door.
Yeah.
I could maintain the clarity, the expertise, the focus, the purity of what I wanted to do, but reach a large enough audience that made that viable. And it just kept growing, kept going. And then nowadays, Icon is just taken off. I'm just blown away. Like, man, we haven't advertised in 15 years, maybe I'm exaggerating, maybe 12 years. So it's all word of mouth. It's all community.
Yeah.
And like at this point.
And those videos, YouTube, man.
Yeah, YouTube's been
that's
killer
serious.
for us.
Who shoots those YouTube videos?
So I shot the first 300 of them. I shot, mixed, edited, color corrected, all the stills, all the video, everything myself.
Oh my God.
And then as of about a year and a half ago, I started working with two young guys, one who's actually a psychologist, and his passion is really videography and photography. So this is like his part-time creative outlet. The other one is a guy who lives right down the street here, and he does a lot of work with his church, but wants to make some side hustle cash. So now I go shoot the narration in one take, no script. I just pull it out of my odd brain and rattle through the specs and all the process. I can remember what we did and only occasionally screw up. Then he's sitting shotgun with me and making mental notes of all the B-roll we got to grab based on whatever came flying out of my mouth. Then we shoot it at Butterfly Park or Crooner or whatever here in the hood and do all the B-roll and stills. And then I go back to work and he does all the final edits and corrections. So now it's a collab with either of those young cats.
They're beautiful, man.
It's been such an important thing. The production quality is not phenomenal, and I'm fine with that. Like, if you look back, they really sucked. It was like me on my iPhone 5 or whatever, I'm a camera geek, so I've slowly added to my arsenal. But, like, I'm not trying to be a reality show. In fact, I will never do a reality show. I'm not trying to be broadcast quality. I'm not trying to be spit, shine, shiny marketing speak. The only thing I try and do is control my epically foul sailor mouth, because I got griped out because it turns out we have a lot of young kids that are super into the brand and follow it. So
I can imagine.
I don't curse anymore.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's directly honest in me and process and what we do. And it's killer, man. Any of you creators out there, YouTube channel, no brainer.
Oh.
Like, I've spent, other than my abyss of camera gear, I don't promote it. I don't spend a dime doing it. I only do the ads to try and cover a fraction, which frankly I'm about ready to ditch, because I make like $400 a month, which I don't understand, because we're like 18 million or something on.
Yeah, it should be more, right?
Asinine, but a great way to honestly communicate with your tribe and to expand your tribe and get your product out.
Oh, look
there.
at Brian
It's
the
such a
Boot
great
Maker.
tool.
I
Yeah,
mean,
Brian's
that basically put him on
that
the
and
map.
Instagram, man. Like, screw Twitter, screw Facebook. I don't even like,
Instagram.
screw the website. Like, I love Instagram. My community on Instagram, I love them. Like, in the weirdest ways, right? Like, fine, it's a great luxury to just take a shot of a 6-digit vehicle and sell it in a couple hours on Instagram.
Insane.
But the deeper thing has been, like, when I first started doing leathercraft, I didn't know shit. Like, watch a couple of YouTube videos and just started stitching and hammering away and getting bloody. The community that reached out of absolute rock star artists in that scene,
Yeah.
the kindness, like, okay, they're like, one of my favorites, this guy's like, so, like Snap-on versus Harbor Freight. It's like, you're kind of going to Harbor Freight for your materials and your tools. If you don't mind, here's a couple links.
Oh.
Or like, dude, you're doing great, but you might want to try saddle stitching, which I'd even heard of. Like, the guy's making me tutorial videos on how to saddle stitch, and like, the openness in that community has been phenomenal. Like, when my kid was 12, my son, who's going to University of the Pacific this year, my younger son, Quinn, to study engineering, I took a picture of him all cute and done up, wearing a suit, holding his robotics trophy. And I think he was like in 8th grade, but he was competing with the high schools, and like his team spanked him, so he won this trophy. And I'm like, that moment gave my son clarity because he was floundering between being a designer, being an engineer. And I had been quietly trying to subtly, because you tell a 12-year-old what to do, he's going to do the opposite. So I'm like, you might want to think about being an engineer because you're already born with the head of a designer. But an engineer who can see the world as a designer, that's secret sauce. That shit's rare.
Oh, that's double. Yeah, that's double whammy. Yeah.
So double whammy, you can create your own brand, your own perspective, party on. You bring something very unique to the table. So when he won that award, he was like, all right, that's it, engineering. But I don't want to be a cubicle robot. I don't want to be segmented to doing the handle on the door panel and never seeing the door panel. Like, I want to be involved in prototyping and developing. Like, how do I do that? What should I look into? And I didn't know the answer. So I took a picture of him, which I never do family, and instead, my son just posed this question to me. What do you guys think? Dean was insane. JPL private tours.
Whoa.
Mars Lunar Simulation Lab.
Whoa.
Nike's Kitchen. SpaceX.
Whoa.
McDonnell Douglas. Texas A&M. National Robotics Lab. Autodesk, with whom we still have an incredibly deep relationship now on the business front. Nike, but that's cheating. We were already in deep with those kids.
Yeah.
But like the amount of visits that we got, the open access and the kindness and the willingness and the anxiousness to share and support his passion, mind-blowing.
Instagram.
And like it's been positive ever since.
Instagram.
Absolutely love it. Yeah. And again, like I've never bought a follower or done anything. I get bitched out sometimes because I'll be like in Japan for 2 months or in Africa for a month or in Morocco or Turkey or something. People are like, what's with the textiles? What's with the fucking lion, man? Where are the fucking trucks?
Oh, yeah. See you later.
Like, you know what? Like, I'm really not trying to be professional.
Yeah.
Even my brands are perhaps irresponsibly based on my passions.
Yeah.
So you ain't...
There's more to me
you
than
want
a
trucks and tits?
4x4.
There's other feeds you can follow.
Yeah.
Like, this is about shit I dig, and
I'm the same way.
You're either down for the ride or like, bye.
That's the same way with me,
And again,
dude.
what's killer, right? Just like you've probably experienced. I learned early on, shut my mouth, hands off the angry keyboard, don't engage. And over the years, like the community, pouncing, holy shit, they tear them a new one, and it's so much fun.
Clean it out for you.
They clean their clock.
They clean it out for you,
like,
man.
I have to come in and like, I mean, I'm sorry, the community, like message the guy, I'm sorry, the community just ripped you 3 new anuses. I didn't really take offense. I understand what you're saying. Maybe your words weren't that polite, but.
You know, one of the things I love about you, and I'm such a design freak, and
sorry, but I have a shit memory, so I'm epileptic, and where my epilepsy is, the longer a seizure goes, it bleeds into other areas of the brain, which fucks up my short term.
Whoa.
So I can get it out before I brain fart. Just this weekend, I got one of those rare today, fortunately, emails. A guy did my configurator online, which are pretty badass, and like configure your truck the way you want it, and you get submitted for quote, and then I go through my spreadsheet and I quote him. So his configuration was 187 grand, which to be honest is kind of cheap for the model he wants. And so I said my standard, hey man, here it is. Like, here's your spec. And emails me back. He's like, what the hell, man? I'm like, the fucking 70s Toyota restored, and you're like throwing a V8 in it, and like, is it made out of the lunar rover material with testicles of the a woolly mammoth testicles, the shifter? You're out of your mind. So I was like 3 missed call in last night when I got that email, and I'm like, usually I just won't engage.
Yeah.
And I was lacking better reasoning, so hit reply. I'm like, you nailed it, sir, but actually 2 woolly mammoth testicles.
Yeah. Yeah, 2 of them.
Thank you. It was cool, though. That guy emailed me back like this morning, and he's like, touche. He goes, I drank a little too much, and I'm a little pissy about my poorness. I looked into your brand after I sent that. Now I totally get it. Thanks for not being an asshole. I was the dick. And I'm like, now it's cool. Like, the guy understands. Yeah. We both had a laugh, and, party on.
Oh, man. I tell you, man, like I said, I watched the videos. I walked around out there, and I get the price, man. I get it.
And I think it sucks.
Yeah.
Personally.
Yeah. What are you
I
going to do?
literally, every time I quote something, I'm like, damn, that's expensive. And like,
Yeah.
my efficiency, I mean, we've had production auditors in engineering process. I'm like trying to figure out a way to not make a compromise, to keep the artisanal honesty of what we do, but to find efficiencies. And like when I find an efficiency, it saves $1,000, but it does not make a difference. And I'm just to the point of like, it is what it is. Now,
Yeah.
if I offshored this, I mean, there's companies in my space now, in the space that didn't exist, that we created, that are like, their entire marketing angle is, we're just like Icon, but we're cheaper and we're quicker. Meanwhile, they're making their stuff in third world countries using third world aftermarket replacement parts, bringing it into the US with brilliant marketing teams and telling this shiny story. And it's like, okay, I could probably both drop my price and create some serious personal wealth, but like, I'd rather that corruption come after I drop the mic and continue with the next creative, stupid idea I have that keeps me passionate and honest, and let the next guy whore this out and scale it. Like, I don't want to be that guy. Like, I'm doing all right. I'm happy.
Yeah, absolutely, man. How do you feel on, I mean, I've been a Toyota man. You know, my mom bought a Corolla in the 70s. It went 1,000,000 miles.
Yep.
Then we bought a Toyota Tercel. It went, I mean, no joke, 300,000 miles. And I've always loved Toyota, but I also love the Defender 90.
You're a martyr.
But here's what's weird about the Defender 90. They don't drive that good. And they're
Try rolling the window down without getting pissed off at what the fuck were they thinking?
it's slow as shit,
The
too.
ergonomics suck, the material execution, the design theology, basically, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And here come the Land Rover purist tribalists who just swear up and down it's the best vehicle on the planet, no matter how many times a Land Cruiser towed their sorry ass out of a situation. Whoever, like the penning, the front 3/4, the aesthetic, I love it.
Love it.
Love it.
Love it.
Quality of the execution since the 70s just sucks.
It's
Just
not good.
does. No, it's just
Yeah.
both limitations of material availability, tooling investment, investor constrictions, and prioritizing, margins over quality. All the usual shit. I mean, don't even get me started on the 2020 Defender-ish.
You're not into that?
Not even close. It's a badge queen. It has nothing to do with its heritage. To me, they ruined the DNA on it. I mean, it's gone. But anyway.
The Bronco killed it, huh?
Hell yes.
Wow.
Super, super, super proud of the entire team. And there was a lot of passion. There were a lot of people who went out on like job-threatening limbs to hold the line on what that vehicle needed to be. And I think, we've seen it since the public launch, but that's just the tip of the iceberg. The impact that's going to have on the market and the design priority of modern utility vehicles, it's going to create a revolution. I really think.
I was pretty surprised how close it was to, say, the early drawings of that silver one that was like the square.
And they actually built that one. I've driven that thing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look, I got
I was in
goosebumps 'cause
love with that thing. I mean,
I
it
was
barely
too,
drives.
like-
It has like a placement electric starter motor that runs it now. But
I love that.
yeah, it was killer. And then it was such an important icon of Ford that it created a lot of stress and passion that created a multi-decadal delay in its realization. But fortunately, it came at a time when really the right team was in place to bring it out. Like
What
Paul
was that?
and
Was it?
Jonathan.
It was a team of like employees that were saying we're going to design this and that.
Well, no, it went through the annals of corporate structure where it was a mandate. It's just fortunate that it came at a time in the economy and in Ford's liquidity and in leadership of the creative teams at Ford that they gave the design team a lot more respect than you could argue or generally given in modern transportation companies. That's pretty much all I can say for now.
Okay.
But I mean, let's just they took a very novel approach. They engaged the community. They engaged people that are deeply embedded and understand and live and breathe the DNA of what makes that mark so special. And they didn't just kind of retro, like reference. They also looked into how do you distill those values and expand upon them and look forward into new innovations, new sort of versatilities and options and things that take that ethic and look forward, not just reference the past.
Right. Man, home run. I couldn't.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought they were going to break the internet the day it came out.
They did. They broke their site several. I mean, their site still crashed.
Yeah, you could tell. Yeah.
Last I heard, it was over 250,000 pre-orders.
250,000?
Yeah.
Wow, man.
Yeah.
What a home run that ride.
I mean, obviously, there's plenty of attrition on pre-orders. And the other interesting fact, last I heard, the metadata on that was over 30% of them were current Jeep owners.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Boom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have tons of ideas we're going to be developing. It's kind of the first non-core thing I'm going to do is do Icon Edition packages and full product lines that will do direct-to-consumer.
Oh, that'll be amazing.
Maybe through Ford, maybe through the dealer. We don't know yet.
A lot like Roland Sands does for BMW motorcycles.
Yeah, very similar to Roland.
Yeah.
Basically, like to me, Eddie Bauer doesn't have a relevance anymore culturally, right?
Yeah.
So in a perfect world, we'd love to be the Icon Edition through Ford, where it's more tactile and highest quality materials and detail elevation stuff. Now, if Ford ever does that or not, I have zero control or power in. But again, it's keeping me up at night enough that I'm doing it on my own. And if they ever want to embrace, great. If not, then so be it. Whatever.
Kind of like the dude that did the SoCal ones, those orange ones back in the late. What was that one? Remember that? What was that Baja one? The Baja
Strope?
It was
So there was the Strope edition, which was Baja. There was the Olympia beer one, which was, but both of those were born out of racing. Actually, the Strope one was interesting because the very first unit Bronco was well, not the very first, but one of the very first all-zero pre-production prototypes was gifted to Carroll Shelby through Ford. Carroll was like, I'm going to do another no 4x4. I was not my scene. He, in turn, gave it to his friend, and then Strope ended up getting involved because they had the race team with Ford support, which led to the Strope edition. But then the Strope edition didn't sell for shit because they weren't a household name.
Yeah.
So they had a bunch of leftover red, white, and blue ones. You know the story of this?
Yeah.
You know what happened to them? They became the Denver Bronco edition. It was like some dealer or distributor of Ford in Colorado was like, well, shit, I know what we can do with those.
Yeah.
So
the Denver Bronco
took them on
edition.
DSO and called it the Denver Bronco edition and got rid of the rest of them.
Yeah, those are probably worth a fortune now.
They don't pull a great premium. It's interesting, but all the vintage Broncos, the prices are just
it's crazy.
Same with the FJ40s, and therefore now the internationals are starting to climb. It's
the internationals going right now.
996s going and 912s going up because proper Porsches went up. Like
and 914 all of a sudden is worth money. Like what do you know?
What though? In defense of the 914,
yeah,
I am kind of hitting a point where I'm looking at those more from a architectural perspective.
I love the look.
Seeing a mid-century cool to them, except for those bumpers. I can't get my head around the fucking.
I love the look of the car.
But yeah, like they're coming into their own, like a Lamborghini Miura. Everyone used to piss on them. Look at that if you're a fan of mid-century furniture and art and architecture, like that door panel, that Bertone door panel.
Insane.
Epic.
Yeah.
Good.
Oh man, I mean 914. I mean, I was at the last Porsche show at the Universal Studios, and they had a whole lot of 914s, and I was just over there like, wow, they just looked like Tic Tacs out there. They're just rad, all these different colors.
Yeah, man, if my ship comes in, I want Rod Emery to build me a pre-A bent window 356 Outlaw, but I want to fuck it up a little. I'd like to put 993 turbo underpinnings under it.
Oh.
Not like freakishly like the Momo build he did, like
right.
very, very retro aesthetic.
That thing was crazy,
cosmetics.
right?
I mean, it was interesting in a creative way, but it didn't like speak to me in a retro futurist kind of way, just
Right.
my thing. But I love him as a person and I love his work. And that would be one of my cars in my permanent stable for sure.
Oh yeah.
But I can't do a stock 356.
Yeah.
Just I don't have the patience for carburetors and drum brakes, and
They're so
just
slow.
can't do it.
Yeah. 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 I
Like
mean,
every shift feels like it's braking.
yeah.
It never breaks, but it feels like your last fucking shift.
Yeah. Yeah. That stuff is, I'm also more of a 911 guy. It's just
Yeah.
to me 911Ts.
There's a purity in the purpose defined by the engineers through to the final retail product that again is a rarity in modern times, and you could argue is barely allowed at places like Christian and Horatio with Pagani. It's or like Bugatti, where they're losing their ass on every one, but at least in the short term they still can. So they're in this little pocket of write-off, and fuck it, it'll come out in the numbers. But it's as an artistic exercise of purity of intent and execution. And it's sad how rare that is these days.
It really is.
Yeah.
I'm obsessed with the 992, the new one.
Yeah.
I think it's one of the greatest bodies I've ever seen come out in the last 30 years. The way the body looks and the inside design, all the panels and the gauges.
Are they giving us back a manual on that one? I think.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
I just
man.
can't do the Tiptronic situation.
Nah,
I mean, I can in a
I can in a normal car. Who cares?
fine or
Yeah.
Panamera or
Oh, of course.
what's the wagon called? I
The
forget.
Cayman and
no, the sexy
Oh,
shooting brake.
the Pan America or whatever. What is that
yeah,
thing?
the
The-
GT whatever.
The four-door
Like,
wagon.
I'm down with that.
Yeah.
But put that in a 911, like no, I'm sorry, can't
Yeah.
play that, can't do it. I'm out.
When does your leather jacket obsession come on? Which was I was pretty fired up to talk to you a lot because you're into so much of the same stuff I'm into, and you were taking apart a classic jacket, which had the late 30s, early 40s,
Yeah.
three-piece backs.
Yeah, talons and all. Yeah.
Yeah, and I learned a lot of my leather knowledge from a guy on Melrose who passed away. I heard Dennis from Leathers and Treasures. I don't know if you ever went
Oh,
there.
he passed.
I don't know if that's true. I heard that
I
he...
used to love that place, man.
How
I
great
love
was
place.
that
Do you-
shop?
Do you know Michael Paradise?
No, who's that?
So Michael Paradise, he's on Abbott Kinney now, and he's got an incredible brand that like pretty much everything they do is heritage brands, predominantly domestic. They need to have been in business for over 100 years. It's called The Stronghold.
Oh, wow.
Oh, you'd love him. He speaks the same poetry you're talking right now. Like
Do they make leathers and stuff?
mostly denim.
Oh, denim. Got ya.
So my leathers, man. I mean, I grew
you-
up on a farm.
Yeah,
So
but you
first
grew up
off,
in
like,
L.A. back then when Leathers and Treasures was the shit, man. Like,
But
I'm
no,
talking
this
about
goes
those old
back-
brands. Like,
this goes
yeah.
way back to vintage tack gear
Oh, yeah.
and saddlery on our farm, and like it was vintage because we were poor and that shit was cheap and given to us. It
Yeah.
wasn't vintage because it was
Hand me
some
down.
elevated thing. It was like whatever we were given. So I always had a respect for that and a fascination even with tooling, even though it's not like my personal style, but like I dig the language and I've studied tooling at length and just dig it. But I think the very first perceived luxury good in my little brain was moving to New York City, bomber jackets.
Bomber jackets. Yeah.
So late 70s, early 80s, that was the shizzle, right? It was
Oh,
either
yeah.
you're either a bomber jacket guy
Yeah.
or you were a members only
Members
girl,
only.
which I couldn't do that. I didn't
Yeah.
play that. But I was definitely down with the bomber. And my parents, were pretty damn frugal. And despite the fact that,
Well, Fonzie wore a bomber.
yeah, come on.
He didn't wear a
So,
motorcycle.
I was
Jackson.
earning as a kid, but like what I was earning was going to pay for our living in expensive New York City. So like when I wanted a new video game or a leather jacket or something that I didn't need, my parents were like, that's fine, but your ass is working for that, and we ain't talking about the paycheck from the job you're already doing. So I had an agent at the time, obviously, but that agent had a lower ranking agent friend, and through them, they would book me doing like literally Sears Roebuck's catalog print shoots of like, the little kid with the baseball bat in his hands looking off into the sunset looking like a goober. That was me.
Wow.
So that was my side hustle cash.
Wow.
Which then I would get to blow on the Game Boy or Walkman or whatever stupid shit I wanted. So I was saving up for leather jacket, and like I walk the city like everywhere, anywhere, and still whenever I'm in New York, man, I walk miles.
Oh, same here.
So I go down to the garment district, and literally like racks of them coming out of the factories, going onto the trucks, and like check out the details, talk to the people, sneak into the stitch room if I could get my ass in there, then go back uptown and go to the luxury stores and check them out. So like I probably geeked on it for 8 months before I finally bought one,
Yeah.
So that was like the first thing that like tied heritage to achievement for me.
What brand was it? You remember?
No, it was I couldn't afford the one I saw on Park Avenue, so it was so,
Yeah.
I honestly don't remember, but it wasn't like an American heritage maker. It was
Yeah.
lower Manhattan, lower West Side churn and burn, but it kicked ass. I mean, had it forever. So
And it was Bomber?
that started it. Yeah.
Brown?
Yeah. Hell yeah. Fur collar.
It's interesting because also at the same time we got shot over there, and then there was the motorcycle jacket because of the East Coast and the Ramones and everything was so big.
Yeah. Then the punk jacket.
The punk jackets, and then
that was
metal.
another thing. Like even going back into the 80s when I was, even in the 80s as a teenager, just for a creative outlet, and into the early 90s when I'd go on these road trips buying vintage cars and vintage Land Cruisers, it got to the point I'd put ads in the Thrifty Nickels. Then I also, because of my leather jacket habit, I'd get in the habit of going to pawn stores when pawn shops
they had them in there.
Shit.
Remember that?
Because the biker dudes would be low on cash
Yeah.
and want to buy a 12-pack, and they'd bring their vintage horsehide jacket
Yeah,
in,
the
right?
shots, the
Mavericks,
Buccos, the
shots,
back.
Buccos, yeah.
Oh.
So I then had the clerks at the pawn shops on the take. So I'm like, dude, next time someone comes in, if it's a Bucco, if it's one of these models, if it's horsehide, I'll slide you $40 to put that shit aside and let me know when it comes through.
Wow.
So I'd buy them all up.
Yeah.
This really dates me. Then now it would be like, now it makes me shiver. But I'd bring them back with me, sit in my backyard, same house I've lived in for 30 some years.
Whoa.
And I'd sit in the backyard and I'd experiment with leather dyes, and I'd take vintage press photos that I'd get access to mostly at Fox Studios back when they still had an archive, like James Cagney, holding the gun in black and white or whatever, like the old PR marketing photos.
Yeah, yeah.
My friend managed the archives. I'd sneak them away, take them home, and I'd hand paint the back of the jackets.
Oh, shit.
With this vintage art in a style that looked like it had been on there since the jacket was new.
Yeah, my buddy was painting leathers
Fred
too.
Siegel's.
Yeah, oh wow, Fred Siegel.
Yeah,
my buddy was selling.
Was buying them from me, and that was like my side hustle cash. Which at that point, when I was still like struggling to pay my mortgage, that in turn supported my vintage watch problem and antique and plein air art painting habits. And
Yeah,
like one fed the other, which has kind of been the story of my life, but really cool in that like I've gained so much appreciation and knowledge, and one hobby supports one hobby gets corrupted into a business which supports the other hobby, which then becomes a business and then goes on to the next one. Like my leathercraft thing right now, I'm doing a lot of research and sample making, exploring is it viable to do like a elevated quality return to traditional craft leather goods brand.
So are you looking at jackets? Well, I know you're doing wallets and stuff, but what are you looking at? Jackets, wallets, boots,
bags, jackets, on and on and on.
Wow. Yeah. And what style jackets do you like the most? Is it motorcycle or is it 30s, 40s?
I've got about 50 vintage leather jackets, most of which are ill-fitting due to the, whatever, like a 30s pre-war. I don't wear
They're
my
terrible
pants up to my rib cage.
Yeah,
or
boxy and short.
Too much sleeve, too short, whatever. But like there are details down to a stitch pattern or a radius or parachute backs or the way the wing vents are or whatever, like the cuff or something I geek out on. There's a couple right there. That I've been studying, and there was one in particular that I didn't feel bad about that one of my car hunters in Colorado found at a garage sale for like $20, and it was beyond salvation.
Yeah.
But the pattern was kick-ass. So I forensically disassembled it, ironed it, made paper patterns, transferred those into CAD, plot printed those, hand cut, hand stitched, hand dyed, hand burnished, 4 of them, tweaking the pattern again and again and again to like stay true to the late 30s aesthetic, but make it relevant to today's styling and lighter weight, more pliable. So I'm super excited. Actually, I'll be announcing my first 100% made in America special batch of Horween leathers, horsehide, tan in this super cool recipe that they haven't done since World War II, but we talked Nick Horween into pulling out of the archive.
Amazing.
It's a partnership with a friend's great old American workwear brand called Black Bear brand.
Great brand.
Yeah, and we're going to launch that, hopefully in the next 60 days, we'll get that going.
You ever get into researching some of these other American companies? Like, there's one in New York, Lost Worlds.
No, I don't know. I mean, the answer is hell yes, I do.
God.
Oh, you just stumped the chump. Lost World.
Man, this guy
Currently active brand?
Yeah, in right outside of the city, right kind of by the airport, Jamaica Avenue. One of the most insane. This guy was doing insane Buco jackets and Beck jackets and stuff before anybody.
Oh, cool.
I'll turn you on to his website. And then, of course, the real McCoys in Japan.
Yeah, magic. And that's just the tip of the iceberg, because the real McCoys, I mean, there's 7 leathers and on and on. And I mean, there's so many. Like when I was in Japan, the whole purpose of my trip, a Japanese craftsman that I studied with told me that the deepest essence of Japanese craftsmanship is engaging all of your senses in what you're creating. So the smell as you make it tells you something.
Oh.
The touch, of course, the sight. There's so many things in it. It's
the feel.
Maintaining an awareness of all senses, no matter what it is you're making, right? So my dear friends run Cool Hunting, and I'd been talking to them about this before, and I'd done similar trips with them. So curated a trip where we explored textiles, clay, woodworking, leather craft, indigo dyeing, architecture, furniture making, and then I stayed longer on my own and did deep dives all over the country with these various craftsmen. And like, if I had the wherewithal to just blow off my responsibilities and go be their like shop bitch intern, I would easily spend 6 months at each of those different artisans learning. And I got to visit many of those leather brands and just
they're just insane. They're insane.
Most of my leather tools I buy come out of Japan, because even the tools are art.
Oh yeah. I mean, I had Jerome Maj on a few weeks ago. He makes these glasses. And we're all obsessed with Japanese quality.
Oh yeah.
It's way beyond anything.
There's pride in creation versus pride in P&L.
Yeah. Yeah.
Which is something we could give some thought to culturally, in my opinion.
I can't thank you enough for having me over here, man.
Yeah, no, I've appreciated you and your perspective and your podcast, and Brian loves you dearly, and a friend of Brian's a friend of mine.
I love what you do, dude.
Thank you.
Before we get out of here, favorite watch?
Can you give me like a brand or a year?
Well...
Okay, no, I'll give you a segment.
Yeah. What are you wearing right now?
So right now I'm wearing a World War II Trench Omega. So
Ooh.
transition from pocket to wrist.
Oh shit! Look
And
at
then
that.
I like NATO bands, but I don't like all the superfluous hardware
I hate all
ding-a-lings
that
and
dumb
that
shit,
switchback
yeah.
shit.
I hate that.
I also like bund bands and
Uh-huh.
the history behind them, but not the chunk and the awkwardness because I'm not like a 70s wrist bracelet sort of dude.
Yeah, like the
So
Paul
that
Newman one.
band is a prototype band I made of my own design through to the buckle. That's made out of it's Italian Balesi. I'm spacing on the tannery with veg tan back, and then it's all hand stitched and hand edge painted. But it's like a bund meets a NATO.
Look at this watch.
Isn't that cool? And the cool thing about like World War I, World War II transition trench watches,
Yeah.
they're a bargain right now.
Really?
No
Like
one
how
realizes it. Like I paid too much for that. Bought it in Paris at Retromobile, the fun car, kick-ass car show.
Yeah.
Paid $600 for that.
Whoa.
But I bought kick-ass trench watches for like $50.
Wow.
Oh yeah. And one of the reasons I've been developing my version of buns is you can take like watches that from a modern perspective, people go, oh, that's too small. It's like 32 mil.
Oh yeah,
I'd
right.
never
Yeah,
wear
yeah,
it."
yeah, yeah.
Man, you put that little
Beef it up.
bugger on a bund,
Yeah.
game changer.
Yeah.
Like totally. And you can buy those like super cheap. So it's my COO bought me a really, really cool watch for my birthday this year.
You AP guy or Patek or Rolex guy at all?
I'm kind of an anti-Rolex because
Right.
to me it's like social baggage. It's not about like the design language so much.
Yeah.
But I definitely a Patek guy.
Oh,
I've
yeah.
got 5 Pateks.
Ooh, what ones?
Mostly early stuff, and I don't remember the reference numbers except I have a 5170 chrono.
Yeah.
Then I like some of the weird shit like Renaissance, Urwerk. I have the first Urwerk, the 101, the Flying Saucer, which is pretty nutty.
Wow.
Most of my watches, though, are 60s and older.
Oh shit. Yeah.
And then designing my own watch was just such an honor. It was such a fun experience, and I hope to continue to do that.
That's
I have
cool.
Tons of stupid ideas.
Well, thanks for coming on the show.
Certainly. Thanks for having me. I bet you, by the way, if I could make a prediction,
Yeah.
which I suck at, so
Yeah.
don't listen to me. Your handmade thematic,
Yeah.
it has such an audience potential and it's so underspoken. That can become its own video series, podcast, brand, collective, even e-commerce collective, like a curated Etsy, you know? Like that has such legs for you.
Yeah. It's and you know what?
Not
It's,
to say that the musicians and
Yeah, but
cats
it-
are
I'm
boring.
more
but, like,
interested in it,
This is
too.
about a renaissance, and
Yeah.
there's so much action and so much passion in it right now. There's so much cool shit to talk about.
Yeah, and you know what? It's I love the musicians and stuff, but it's the gratification I get from an email when somebody says, "Man, I didn't give a shit about sunglasses or boots or watches," and then they get into it and it opens their brain. That to me is the ultimate reward of the show because it's like, "Oh, you get it now."
You know what? And that means so much to the creators in this space. Like I've just organically done it, honesty, just passionately done it forever, where I will send a handwritten note or an email if I can drill down and get to the madman behind the whatever it is that just lifted my skirt like amazing, like kudos. And that's what the subject line always is, kudos.
Yeah.
And just even if it's so out of my realm, I can't afford it, never going to happen, just acknowledging a creator that's driven by passion, that you get it. So Mr. Hater of the $300 denim, if you do get your head around it, and you'll never spend it, if you take the time to acknowledge and support that creator, a lot of times to geeks like us, it's the props, it's the kudos, it's the understanding and the communication, the reach out of, man, I could never afford what you do, but I love what you're doing and the passion behind it and what it speaks to. Honestly, to a lot of us, means more than a sale. And for me, it's created some incredible relationships and friendships over the years. I mean, that's
Well,
how Brian and I
It also creates for me my entire life of growing up poor, food stamps, government cheese, single mom, it created drive of how can I get to that. I could get an icon if I really put my fucking head wrapped around it in that old paper clip traded up to a house mentality.
Man, and all the stories of like people that have reached out to me and said like, because of you, I took my staying up till 3 a.m. tinkering in the garage or in the attic or the playroom or whatever on the kitchen table. And I quit my soul sucking job that I hated. It was making me an asshole. Now I'm doing what I love. And just that alone has changed not just my life, but the life of my family, because I'm not a bitter prick. You know, like, seeing that change, being a part of that revolution. I mean, obviously I need to sell my shit, but like seeing the impact ever so small in culture has been so motivating. So cool.
I love that. I get that same thing where people go, man, you started comedy at 44. And I always say, whatever you're doing, especially during COVID right now, reinvent yourself.
It's a global opportunity.
Oh,
I've been hashtagging most of my leather work, like COVID creative or, COVID distraction. And to be honest, I'm kind of down with it. Like, I've had a lot of time at home between that and my wife's battling breast cancer. So, we're extra careful and staying home. Man, I just burning the midnight oil, just podcasting and stitching away.
That's great, man.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you.
What's the Instagram? It's Icon, right?
Yeah, just Icon 4x4.
Yeah, and everybody, I say when you, as soon as you're done with this, dive into the rabbit hole of these cars because the trucks. When I walk around out there, I know what I'm looking at, and I'm still blown away. And when I watch like the truck, when you did Joe's Toyota or this yellow and cream Ford,
Truck was so
those
cool.
two videos really, I've been watching the videos for years, but it's really unravels what this is, man, because it keeps going. Like I said, we knew the owner was going to go here, so we created this, and this knob here does this now, and that kind of stuff is just like, how do you even have that vision? And that's what really I love about you is the pure vision, man.
To me, either honor that and execute it and then try and make a business case or go home.
Yeah.
So what's the point? There's already enough shit in the world.
Yeah. All right. Thank you guys for the support. See ya.